and welcome everybody to the first community awareness meeting.
Yay.
Yay. And I will start the slides. And actually, Walter, I made you a co-host. Do you know how to admit people to the
Yes,
meeting?
Yep, I'll keep an eye on that.
Okay, thank you. So let me share my screen. And the slides are mainly just to keep us on track. One of our topics is the 2025 Harlot Mecklenburg Housing and Homelessness Project. And some of you may know all about this, but I put just a small summary here and also the website if you want to write down the website address, and you can look it up later and learn a little bit more about it. But this is the very first time that we have a comprehensive, systematic approach with public, private, and nonprofit sectors. And Beth, I noticed that you had joined. Can you talk a little bit about the 2025 new strategy? And are you unmuted?
I was double muted. I'm sorry. Hi, everyone. Okay. My name is Beth Reichert, and I work at the United Way of Central Carolina. So, just a lot of my information comes from my work there, and this cross-sector just initiative is new to our community. As you can see, 2025 is the target date to address some of our community's just biggest needs within the housing area. So this is an opportunity for individuals and organizations to get involved in that effort. It already has two main groups. There's an executive group and there's a technical group. As far as I know, the participation in those groups are already set. And then there will be, I believe it's 9 work streams, and those will focus on different, more specific areas. So we are going to work on just determining whether, a 4th Ward representative or participation makes sense, and if it does, then which work stream. But as Shirley said, the website has a lot of information already, so definitely encourage people to go to it and learn more.
And thank you, Beth. And if you could follow up on one of your contacts, because I emailed the generic email, it said for more information, if you would like to participate in a work stream, contact us at, and that email keeps bouncing back. So I believe you have a contact that you can reach to see what work stream possibly 4th Ward neighborhood would best fit in.
Yes, I will do that.
Okay. Alrighty. And did anybody, we're not going to go deep into anything, but before we switch to the next topic, did anybody have any comments about this particular topic? Can
I jump in?
Of course, anybody.
Hi, everybody. This is Walter. I think I know most of you, Walter Sanders. I'm on the board as well. This is so exciting because there's so many multiple organizations and non-GOs and neighborhood organizations trying to tackle homelessness and the related problems. And this is so cool because it creates a funnel where energies can be synergized and combined, and there's a plan, and it's really kind of cool. I hope it goes well, and I hope this organization is able to participate in some way. So it's exciting.
Thank you, Walter. Anybody else? Okay, so another topic is the Charlotte City Council meetings and their 2040 plan. So with this committee, we're not looking for someone to go to every single city council meeting, but it looks like they publish their agendas in advance. They're actually meeting right now. I looked it up. They publish the agendas, they record the meetings, and you can go back into the archives and see what they're talking about. So we want maybe a small team of people, and there's a good bit of people on the call, that if they start covering something that relates to our neighborhood, then if maybe 3 people could say, all right, I'll go tonight, or I'll represent the neighborhood, or at least read the, keep up to date with the agenda notes so that we don't miss something that relates to our neighborhood. Our city council representative is Malcolm Graham. And it was interesting. I looked him up. I was trying to find a little bit about him, get his picture for tonight. And one of his main goals is to make Charlotte a better place for everyone to live, work, and play. And I laughed a little because our board just spent almost 2 months working on a new mission and a vision. And our new vision statement is to be the finest urban neighborhood in the US, a place where we're proud to live, work, and play. So I think we're just going to get along fine with Malcolm Graham. He was also one of the people very active in working with getting the people moved out of the tent city. Some of our board members were talking about this a few minutes ago. Nice to invite Malcolm Graham. Oh, so did you, Beth. And also another one is interested in bringing the city attorney, Patrick Baker. So maybe they could come to the same neighborhood meeting and educate us on some of these things, talk through some things, answer questions. So the Charlotte City Council has a 2040 plan. And if you want to write down the website, there it is, cltfuture2040.com. And the goal is to make every neighborhood a 10-minute neighborhood where everything you need is within 10 minutes, whether it's a walk or a bike ride or public transit, just 10 minutes away. There are some parts of the 2040 plan that are controversial or have caused a little bit of ruffled neighbors because they want to increase diversity and inclusion in every Charlotte neighborhood by eliminating single zone housing, which means that in any single home, you could now rebuild a duplex or a triplex. And so the 2040 plan is, and Beth, this would be a good point for you to jump in if you have knowledge. I don't believe it's completely finalized. They're still getting input from neighbors. And Beth, you mentioned there's an additional cross-sector coalition. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so it's currently in the works. It's called Neighbors for More Neighbors, Charlotte, and this is a coalition, again, cross-sector. It's modeled after the first Neighbors for More Neighbors, which I believe was in Minneapolis, and it's just an opportunity for collective advocacy. So this would be people could go onto the website that is currently being worked on now and should be launched within a week or two, and get resources to learn more about the plan, but also to help advocate for it, should that be your position. And similar to the 2019 Unity Letter, which some may remember, there will be an opportunity to go onto this website and sign your name in support of the 2040 plan. So, and I'm sorry, you're in the same neighborhood, but the train's coming by, so I'm sorry if you can hear that in my background. Yeah, so I can certainly share that with Shirley and Walter once there's more information, once that website is launched, which should be soon.
Great. So we'll publicize the website of that. Any comments, questions, input about Charlotte City Council?
I have a question. Are those meetings available online as well? Are they doing in-person and a Zoom or some sort of digital representation too?
When I looked a few minutes ago, it looked like there was agendas and videos online.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
Because it might be good for us to catch up a little, and then especially related to historic Fourth Ward, and figure out if there are particular meetings where they have public forums or feedback from the neighborhood. Those are the ones that we would need a heads up to know if a couple of committee members want to go, or at least a representative, so that we stay informed and are able to work with the city council, not just hear about it later after things are decided.
Great.
Anybody else? Okay, another topic is develop relationships with Edwin Towers and Poplar Grove Apartments. So Edwin Towers, excuse me, is government housing, and Beth, you may be able to explain that a little bit better, but Poplar Grove Apartments used to be with the Salvation Army and now is private, but it is subsidized housing. So I just wanted to mention the difference in the different housing. They're both senior living. They're both 65 and up, although I believe we found out it was 55 and up, with some having their children living with them. Anyway, just knowing it's two different types of places. Walter and I went to Edwin Towers, and their comment was that the fourth ward comes around every few years or so, and then disappears. So we would like to do something with a little bit more continuity, where we don't disappear after a few years, but actually develop a relationship with our neighbors. And Walter, can you tell everybody a little bit about what happened at our visit? And then Beth, I'd like you to share, because that's how we discovered Beth. Is the social worker also said, you're the second one from the neighborhood to call me this month. And that was how we were able to get in touch with Beth. So Walter, can you update everybody on our visit to Edwin Towers?
Oh, I'd be happy to. We scheduled a meeting with a representative from Edwin Towers for April 21st. Shirley and I went over. We met with Diane Smith. She's a social worker and also runs programs at Edwin Towers. It was remarkable. We were joined by Larry Greer. He's the long-serving president of the HOA, and a bit later by a woman named Mary, and I think the last name is Milliner. She's the secretary of the HOA, and she had tons of energy when she got into the meeting. We reviewed the history a little bit of the most recent involvement that we're aware of with Fourth Ward and Edwin Towers. There was a community garden that was put together, and it ran well. And eventually it went into disrepair, and the garden no longer exists. We also learned that there was some community art programs that the organization was involved with, along with the McCall Center of the Arts, for birdhouses and some neat shellware stuff that was nicely described. Diane talked about the impact of COVID on the building. They've got very, very strong COVID protocols there, and those protocols had a negative impact on some very popular programs that included field trips and some travel opportunities. And it hurts, you know, people are sort of locked up. It's a tough situation. We opened up the floor to ideas. The purpose of our visit was to meet these wonderful neighbors and learn more about possible ways to collaborate. And again, we got in and out of the history. So this woman named Mary jumped up, and she had a great list. I'll just do some highlights. She said, we need an herb garden, because the other garden used to be depleted by unwanted visitors who would eat vegetables and things, but an herb garden would help supplement a nutrition program that they put together to try and better the dietary practices of the residents. So that's really a kind of a neat one. Mary also said it would be fun if we could get a walking tour of the Fourth Ward, so our people could go out and get exercise. That already exists. You know, we might have to modify it and dig up the old walking tour maps and things, because not everyone is digitally savvy in that building, but that would be an easy one. Mary also mentioned that there's a noise problem. Our own Chris Collins, Chris Conley, has been really, really active in trying to curtail the drag racing and the engine revving and stuff. Not everyone has air conditioning in their units at Edwin, so there was some discussion about maybe noise machines, which would make it a lot easier for the residents to sleep. We learned that a lot of the residents like puzzles, and they like them so much that when they're completed, they're sort of varnished and hung up on the wall as art. But I think their supply of puzzles is limited, and some of the ones they have are missing puzzle parts, and you know how frustrating that is. So that could be a way that we could help them. Mary is also an advocate of mental stimulation for residents. She would like to upgrade the playing card program to include games like pinochle, canasta, and cribbage. She would need some instructions. Maybe there are residents, neighbors in our area who could go over and help people learn to play these games so they could stimulate their mental.
Hey, Walter, can
Yeah.
I interrupt just for a second?
Yeah.
What, just every now and then something happens where it just makes my heart feel nice. And so we were there offering, what can we do for you? And Mary said, why don't you come over and let us teach you canasta and teach you spades? And, you know, we know all these old card games. Why don't you guys come see us and we'll teach you how to play games? And then she said, and if anybody knows chess, man, I'd like a good chess player to play with me. So they were looking for ways to give to us. And that was kind of cool. So I'm sorry, keep going.
Well, I had that in reverse, it sounds like.
That's okay.
The group also, or the management also purchased a smart TV, and they've got some challenges in trying to program it so they can maximize the use of that TV. And hopefully there's someone in our neighborhood who could come over, help them figure that out and help people. All in all, it's an opportunity for us to learn more about these neighbors. The building is now part of a rebranded organization. It is called Enlivian, which it was the former Charlotte
Housing.
Yeah, the Housing Authority.
Housing Authority, right,
Yep.
Beth?
So it's all good. Beth, take it away from there, please.
Well, I think you did a great job. And as Shirley mentioned, there was just sort of a serendipitous connection. I had reached out through Enlivian's website, and I always say that I really thought that I was throwing an email into a black hole when I reached out, just to say, like, I'm just thinking about these neighbors who are living, likely in some isolation, especially if they're the mobility is challenged. And coincidentally, I have, part of my church group, I have a friend, a woman whose mother and her aunt live there. So it was, just a very personal connection, and it's, right around the block in the neighborhood. So I reached out, and the sun is now very bright. I reached out to Enlivian, and then I was pleasantly surprised to get a call back from Diane Smith, who Shirley mentioned, and that she and Walter met with. And we had a great conversation, and we didn't get into as much detail as they did, but she did mention the puzzles, specifically word searches, that the residents really just kind of go through them, and it's some cognitive exercise, and that was just a simple way for an individual to contribute. So then, as Shirley said, when the board reached out to Edwin Towers, they said, "Oh, you're the second person," or and so it was very, very cool way to get connected with Walter and Shirley. So that's there. So that's a very simple way that we could help in a very short amount of time. It's just to collect some puzzle books or puzzles.
So we have a plan to meet. They invited us back. We suggested after the garden tour to meet with the Larry and Mary again. And we would like a couple of the people on the call today that are interested to also come, because they're going to bring their floor captains to the meeting, and they have a big community space, and get input from their floor captains. Just for example, the herb garden, they believe the homeless people won't steal basil, for example, but they would like to get us all engaged, and the floor captains talking about what would really be useful to them, and just more ideas on us working together, or together as neighbors. And then their interest in us coming over and to them, because they are senior adults. It's all independent living in both of the houses. So that's one of our to-do plans in late May or early June. and we would need a couple of volunteers, to go with us. And also during that time, which can be done, I think, Beth, you would make a great contact for, you mentioned you're willing to collect puzzles and word searches to take over. So that would be ideal. Anything else? Anybody else that wants to comment on Edwin Towers, Poplar Grove? There is history with us doing things with them in the past, but we're trying to create more transitional documents for future boards and future presidents. We also have started an advisory council, and one of the goals of the advisory council is to go through history and figure out what worked and what didn't work, and give the current board advice on how to not make the same mistake twice, or how to improve upon something that was effective. Since we have done some really good things over the years, but not a lot of that is easy to find. So getting that documentation from past presidents, uploading it to the cloud so that future boards can access it, read it, and we don't have to keep reinventing ourselves every 5 years or disappear, as Edwin Towers said, the residents.
Well, can I just say something?
Oh, please.
We've done quite a bit with Edwin Towers through the years, of course, and I guess it doesn't become consistent. But what we have done in the past is we would ask the social worker or the property manager, per se, what can we do for you? And normally it would be we would write a check and she'd give them a party, something like that. I think we bought a piano one time.
We heard that.
We had an ice cream party there.
Wow.
We've done lots, but what happens is the management changes over, so do the residents, because they're elderly, and it just changes. The best thing, I think, was the friendship trays, when we had delivery. The neighborhood pulled together a group of people that did friendship trays, and that was one of the routes. And you went up and down the building and you knew the people, by delivering them meals once, a week or something.
Oh,
So,
I like that.
So I mean, that might be when friendship trays comes back. They haven't even started back yet. I think they were starting back shortly. But that was one of the things that worked. But the ice cream party worked. The garden. What happened with the garden was that, of course, neighbors in the neighborhood adopted a plot of land. They went and planted it. And then what happened was they never would go back and tend it. No one was, it was a great plan. Sarah Kennard kind of headed it up. And it was kind of like, we've got to make a decision whether we're going to mow this thing down, because it just became weedy and, and a mess. And we bought those birdhouses to put in it. We put the benches. We did all that together, as a neighborhood association. And I thought it was going to be great, but I didn't adopt a piece of land because I had a yard at the time. But people who did adopt a piece of land didn't keep it up, and they just, because there was no accountability, I guess, per se. But
what do you think? I mean, is the herb garden a good idea, or how?
I think the herb garden is a great idea if you do some kind of raised beds or something somewhere near the building. I think it'd be a great idea to do something like that, as long as there's a committee that's going to go over, like Robin Cochran or something. We have had in the past, we did a garden, I think, over at First Ward School one time. We sponsored it, for the kids, so they could learn to plant and things like that. That kind of whatever's at First Ward, I think, is the best idea for what we do at Edwin. But, it's going to need to be something that they can get to easily. Our plan was to have this nice, community garden, and they had benches and all out there. It ended up with the homeless people hanging out on it, and sleeping on the swing and stuff. So it just turned out to be not what it worked for about a year, and then it just fell apart, which was a shame. But the herb garden, like if you put it over there near the shuffleboard section or something,
okay,
I don't think that would be a bad idea. But the ice cream party, we could do something like everybody, make ice cream and go over and have an ice cream party with them. But you have to do it middle of the day. You can't do an evening thing. It has to be, when they're awake, because
That
most of them
makes
go to
sense.
bed early. It's
You
just
know,
hard with older people to make it all work because their schedules and their lifestyle is entirely different than our neighborhood.
that makes sense. They also mentioned, it just occurred to me, they have this tiny little apartment stove in their kitchen. Now, they're not cooking food for the residents. Most of it's delivered now, either, like you said, friendship trays, or they're delivering frozen food and put it in freezers. But they did mention for parties or for events that they would like to have a regular size stove. So that might be something on the to-do list. I was also wondering, and Miller, I would love your advice. Their community room, their big community room, they seemed interested in having visitors or having more participation, like not just giving them an ice cream party, but actually staying, and
That's what
hanging out
I
with them.
agree. Yeah, I agree. We've done that in the past, and it was very rewarding. It was very rewarding to a lot of people. But, it's hard to get a lot of people you'd have to do it on a Saturday or a Sunday, and where people are mostly not at work, and they can come like about 11, started, 1 o'clock or something.
Okay. Now, I also wonder, do they still have, and I don't know if anybody has kids that age on the phone call, but Eagle Scouts or high school volunteer hours. We do have high school kids in the neighborhood. Could we do some sort of program where they could get volunteer hours to help with the herb garden or participate in events?
Even make it a project. I think that would be something to contact the Scouts about.
Okay.
This, and I think aren't they down on 7th Street, or aren't they right down?
I don't know. If anybody
I think
knows.
Boy Scouts of America is right down. I mean, I haven't been Boy Scout in years, but I know that they're down on the headquarters. It's on 7th Street, I think. And but yeah, I mean, there's numerous things you can do. But if you want to just go and buy a raised garden and give them some, buy the herbs and stuff and plant them, that's fine. But it is gonna have to be kept up. They may go out and use them for some things, but as a whole, we tried that. And there was a lot of herbs in those gardens out there, but you just can't expect them to go out. They would go out and walk around in it, but that was about it. And then the people who adopted it wouldn't go over there and tend it, so it just petered out.
Yeah. Miller, can I follow up on your comment about the friendship trays? Because this is really kudos to the organization. And I don't know if when exactly it happened, but Diane Smith mentioned a couple things that were really meaningful to the building. So the friendship trays would include not just food and stuff, but referrals for clothes, or provide clothes for residents. She was really proud of friendship trays somehow participating in helping people obtain the kind of documentation they need to take advantage of social services in the city, which was really neat.
Yeah.
She also mentioned that somehow the friendship trays included procurement of medicine. And I don't know if she meant like delivery of medicine, or I don't know what the connection was there, but those stood out in her mind as things that were really important and helpful and beneficial to the residents. So it was cool.
Well, Friendship Trace is a wonderful organization. Sometimes that's where a senior gets their only contact with the outside world, is when you deliver, and you don't just walk in, lay it down and leave. I've changed light bulbs, I've pulled something off shelves. I mean, you become that helper that they get accustomed to. But there again, then one day you show up to pick up your trays and they're not on the list anymore, and you don't even know what happened to them.
Yeah.
Well, I know, just for example, when I walk by Poplar Grove Apartments, when I first moved to 4th Ward, I didn't know that the gentlemen that were standing out there, I thought they were homeless people. So I thought possibly they were people on drugs, or people that were alcoholics, filled with alcohol. So I avoided them. I would cross the street and I would just not look at them. And as we started learning, and I realized, no, those are my neighbors. And the guy with the wheelchair that decorates his wheelchair with all the holiday things, they come to the
Flower.
curb to socialize with the neighbors. And it hit me, no, these aren't drunks and these aren't people on drugs. These are senior neighbors. And Beth, can you talk a little bit? You had some goals of education.
Yeah, so are you talking about the nonprofits, partnering with nonprofits?
Oh, okay, so we can jump, let me jump to
Oh,
that. Yes, so
yeah, is that, yeah, so, I've been told that, and I know that this association has made donations to various nonprofits for many years, which is wonderful. And, I had asked Shirley, like, what the plan is for that, and will the future donations benefit nonprofits that are working within Fourth Ward or Uptown, and just, curious. And so it sounds like there's opportunity for just a new approach, or at least a consideration of a new approach. And I was just thinking through, just some ideas and thinking about kind of combining a donation to a nonprofit that, the neighborhood would like to support with educational opportunities. So, essentially making a donation for an agency's knowledge and expertise in a particular area. So I've given a few, of course, maybe I'm biased, but I do think I work with some phenomenal leaders at United Way. And I feel like I get an education every day just by working there and learning from them directly. So, could it be a United Way community impact? I'm on the community impact team, but not me, but maybe, my supervisor, or maybe, someone from the executive team who can really like hone in on some, whatever we would want to learn about within the community. So if it's, racial equity, social justice, economic mobility, disparities that our community is facing across the board, et cetera. And then I was also thinking, Race Matters for Juvenile Justice, which is a phenomenal nonprofit that's doing incredible work within, of course, the justice system here. And they are it's the organization that offers what was called the Dismantling Racism workshops. Now it's Racial Equity Workshop. It's the 2-day workshop that I feel like many people have gone through from all walks of life, and I just found it to be incredible. So that executive director, I find him to be, again, just a phenomenal leader, and his knowledge, I think, is worth a donation from Fourth Ward. So those are just two, but any number of nonprofits in our community, I think. But exchanging, again, the donation for the knowledge and just being from the nonprofit world, knowing that nonprofits are struggling. So I would really love to see us support them in a way that, we're not just asking them to give, it's an exchange.
And I listed some nonprofits that were related directly more to the what we just covered, the homelessness issue, and then the senior adults, but it doesn't preclude, because I know we have at least one nonprofit representative on the call. We're not saying we're not giving to any of the other nonprofits, but we, this would be, I know we actually need a committee at some point after the garden tour and Miller knocks it out of the park. Then we need a committee to start discussing the donations for this year. And part of that will include community awareness, which is part of our mission. So it's not as that all of our nonprofit is heading in this area. It will be a part of what we're already doing. And we need a committee to discuss and figure out what we're going to do with all those great funds, again, after Miller's uber successful garden tour in a couple of weeks. So those are some of the initial things that we could think of. when we worked on our mission, community awareness was something that we realized is important. I know Miller, as a past president, has talked about the homelessness issue, which the tent city is no longer here, but it will always be an issue for Fourth Ward and Uptown residents. So we wanted to have a specific committee that would address the homelessness issue and also community awareness. And we have been searching for months for people to lead this initiative. And finally, Walter and I got frustrated and just called Edwin Towers. So, and in doing so, we got connected with one of our neighbors that is educated in a lot of these areas, Beth. So we're really thrilled to be connected to her and are figuring out what form of leadership she would like to take in this area. So next steps are, we have the meeting at the end of May or beginning of June with Edwin Towers. We would like a couple of people to volunteer to go with us. We will need people on the committee to decide when we're ready to do donations. And that's also something that we're digging into the past, looking at. We had a grant approval process in the past. We've found that information from some of our older residents, primarily Sarah Kennard and Kathleen Mundell are educating us on the way there was a grants process in previous years. So we need a committee together to help us decide where the grants go. That's not one person, that needs to be definitely a community committee. I mentioned the meeting, and then we need plans. Beth, and if you will unmute and help me with this. What are other next steps? Oh, we need volunteers for the city council to take turns reading, or everyone just kind of keeping up with the agenda and saying, okay, this looks like we need somebody here next week at the city council meeting. We're following up, and I think, Beth, that's you, with the work stream for the 2025 coordinated plan, figuring out where do we fit in that plan. And then also staying up to date with the 2040 plan with city council, making sure that it doesn't just happen around us, but that we participate as a neighborhood and figure out what's best for Charlotte and also for our community. Okay, Beth, Miller, Walter, anybody else, help me out of what are additional steps?
Find people who want to engage. I don't want to put, over pressure on Beth. Are you still there, Beth? But boy, your insights and your participation in this space in the community would be really invaluable. So I'm really glad you're on the call tonight. Shirley said this has been a kind of a tough road to hoe, and it's hard. It's a challenging committee, but I think it's really, really important. Some people squirm at some of the issues, but boy, those issues won't go away until we get a better understanding of how to deal with them. And I think that's a real important mission for us. So please spread the word and try and engage anyone who cares about these particular issues and how they impact our neighborhood.
I'm excited about how many people are on the meeting. In fact, I don't know, I'm going to take a screenshot of who came just so I can follow up. So I don't think that's going to show up in the recording. Beth, anything you'd like to say? Miller, anything you'd like to say?
I think all this is really good issues. They're big city issues that are going to be very difficult for our neighborhood to take on as a big whole. I think that honestly, we are already that 2040 plan. The 2040 plan is going to be outside and around us. We've already got all the diversity, and our neighborhood is very walkable. We're 10 minutes away from everything. Our neighborhoods, I don't think it's going to have to really worry so much about the 2040 plan. What they worry, when I went to the 2040 planning meeting at First Presby, basically what they were talking about is how it's called the baby grandbaby chasers or something, where the grandparents are moving to Charlotte to be with the grandchildren. That's where our growth is. He wants our neighborhoods to have more parks and everything. So he's gonna, that's their plan, is to bring a lot of these neighborhoods that are outside of us that don't have parks and outdoor space. And we already have some of that. So I don't know that our 2040 plan is going to be that much of a thing. The city council meetings, in my opinion, if you're going to, they all are always publicized on the television when they have them, when they would, you could watch it during the evening. I mean, it makes for great entertainment, I'm sure. But, you can watch them. You would not have to go there. I think that what we need to do with city council and with Malcolm and all is, when we are having this issue with this cars racing up and down the road, we have to go as a neighborhood and be in front of the city council and get on the agenda when they actually are in session, and they can see the support that this neighborhood has in trying to get this fixed. I mean, it is a pretty bad issue. And Chris Connolly alone, and without having some kind of big support with the city council and the mayor, we're not going to get anywhere until that's done. And it may be, I hate to say it, but they're going to have to maybe reroute the traffic or something. And it's like a racetrack out there on Church Street. It's terrible. And it has diminished at times, but it's going on now that they pull them over on Friday and Saturday, they're coming in on Monday instead. So,
well, this might be something where safety and community awareness work together to show that full support at the city council meeting.
Absolutely. I think it's just, we just need to have our agendas that are affecting us. Like Edwin Towers, they can't sleep at night because of these roaring cars. I don't blame them. It's everybody's being affected by this. And I'm sure you have it on 5th Street too, don't you, Walter?
Yes, sir.
I mean, it's become a really big problem. So that's going to be, I think, the main thing. But I do love the idea of engaging with Edwin and Poplar Grove in a way that, is not a taxing way for everybody. But if we could organize like a July something, that would probably be really nice for them. Have you budgeted anything in the budget for something like that with the board?
Well, Walter, if I have a comment. I don't want to forget, and then we can get back to the budget, but I know the budget doesn't really exist till after the successful garden tour that's coming. But Jasmine, our social chair, she speaks passionately about her goal for the social committee. What does she say? Mind, body, spirit. She doesn't just want to have activities, but she wants to make it more holistic. And so I'm surprised Jasmine didn't come tonight, but she would be all over this, helping with the ice cream party and making it, she wants social to be more meaningful. She realizes during pandemic, we need to connect, and
it's not about the ice cream we bring, it's about us just showing up and being with them.
Exactly, right. And then Walter, I'll throw that budget question back to you.
Yeah, Miller, in a nutshell, we're not running on fumes, as you know, but the tank isn't anywhere near full. So the board has decided to hold off until we can quantify the great success of the Secret Garden Tour.
Yeah, Elmwood is going to be the beneficiary of most of the garden tour. That's the thing. And then, after that, the best we're going to do is 10,000 for the association, and the rest of it will go on to Elmwood. The holiday home tour is going to be the key. And then if we can put something together in the fall, some kind of little private, function or something that people pay
don't
for.
Forget about that. That's excellent. And that is that's you. So when you recover from the garden tour.
Yeah, Beth said that she would help us, pro bono for a fall event because of what happened last year with not doing anything, actually launching anything. So, I think these are all great ideas. I think the Edwin Towers, Poplar Grove is great, and I think we need to do something about the with the city council and Malcolm concerning the street racing that we're having. It's really not street racing, I'm sorry to say. It's just loud cars.
Loud noise.
They're not actually going fast. They're just revving, and the cars are actually designed to be loud. And maybe that's something that North Carolina inspectors can do. You know, when I used to take my car in, if my muffler wasn't doing right, they didn't give me an inspection. You know, they didn't give me the passing grade. I failed and had to get it fixed. So I'm sure that that's where we're going to have to probably attack that issue.
That's another good point. And I'm going to go back to Jasmine's philosophy too, is that our goal isn't to burden anybody with doing too much work, but looking at this dozen or so people dividing up tasks, working together, taking turns. But what we want is a consistency, a little bit of continuity. And then over the years, as you know, as things change and people don't want to be in leadership or can't serve as much, that we've developed that continuity where we can continue things and keep them successful. So I'm excited about seeing the amount of people on the call tonight. Beth, is there anything you'd like to summarize or you'd like to say?
Yeah, well, I would definitely like to commend you and Walter, you know, for just getting this going with, you know, without like an exact plan in place. I think sometimes, you know, we can just stop, right? We can just and not move forward because things aren't perfectly, you know, planned. So, you know, I think that's great. And I know talking briefly last week, you know, I just really again commend you for the words that you used and the focus areas that you have with being inclusive. And, you know, I echoing Miller, you know, the Edwin Towers and Poplar Grove, like they're residents too, you know, they're neighbors too. And looking for ways to just for all of us to be a more inclusive community, I think is so important. And, you know, your leadership is a big deal, you know, towards that goal. So definitely want to thank you for that. And, yeah, I think that's about it. I'm excited. Oh, and what I do think is very cool about this committee as well is that it's very dynamic. There's like some service, there's social, you know, there's advocacy and policy. So it's really, you know, it's kind of across the board, something for everybody. So I think that's a very, very unique, you know, kind of opportunity right there.
And finding a neighbor like you that's ready to jump in and volunteer. I think there's more neighbors out there that can, as you said, fit all of those different focus areas and get more neighbors involved. That's my hope. Well, we will follow up. You heard our plans. We have email communityawareness@fourthwardclt.org. communityawareness@fourthwardclt.org, and we're going to set up the meeting after the garden tour. Also, you can email that, or also the generic communications@fourthwardclt.org. And if you have puzzles or word searches, and then we will follow up. I took a screenshot of those. I don't know who iPhone is. I might need a little help identifying that person and Renee P. Maybe you can email me at communications and let me know who you are if you'd like to participate. But so more soon. But this is just our first meeting. And any other comments or questions before we end?
Walter here. I just want to thank everyone for attending. Beth, great to see you. And let's go get them.
Oh, and we have a Leanne. I want to help. Wait a minute. We've got a 2 in the chat. Oh, Marissa. Okay, so the person I can't see is Marissa D'Ambrosio. And then Leanne, I want to help. I just need to think about time commitments to be effective, interested in city council. Super. And
Awesome.
I've got your contact information, Leanne. Marissa, I do not. If you could email me at communications@fourthwardclt.org, then we'll have your contact information. All right, I think it's a great start. Thank you everyone for your time tonight. More soon.
Certainly.
Great.
Take care.
Okay,
Bye.
good night.
Good night.
Thank you very much.